All right. So we should be live right now. Yeah. So we were just talking about because you did say that you played soccer at Louisville. So I want to know, since you're working in basketball, like how are like I mean, you obviously have to know a lot about basketball, but since you were literally a Division I high major like college soccer player, how were you able to kind of build up that basketball IQ and everything?
Well, basketball's always been my passion, and playing soccer at Louisville is playing is a stretch. I was part of the team, and I had a great time, a great experience to kind of learn how everything works there. But basketball was always my passion. And at the end of the day, I knew I wanted to do something in basketball, whether that was coach or do something in the front office or do something like I'm doing right now, video coordinator. And so it's been a real blessing to be able to kind of follow those dreams and take my stuff here to Auburn.
Yeah, well, I guess like I feel like it's kind of tough, like playing a sport that's not basketball because you are on the team. So you got to know, unless soccer's not like I know basketball, you got to know a lot of plays, you got to know a lot of scouting, a lot of defense. I don't know kind of too much on how soccer works. So I'm just going to assume it's like basketball where you got to know a lot. And then on top of being a student at school, so like how are you like finding the time to, get yourself ready basketball wise for where you are today and everything?
Yeah, I mean, I got an opportunity to coach an AAU team when I was finishing up my degree at University of Louisville, and that experience kind of showed me that this was the path that I really wanted to take. I mean, with soccer and basketball, in terms of playing, it's all about understanding your teammates, kind of trying to know what they're going to do in certain situations and certain times. And people don't like me to say this, but to me, soccer and basketball are the same sport. Like, it's just more numbers and more space. But at the end of the day, you're trying to create space to attack attack lanes and to attack a basket, and ultimately put the thing in the basket. And so, the more you feel comfortable with your teammates and the more that you kind of know what their next step is going to be, the best players, in my opinion, in both sports can kind of see the game before it happens. And so before they get the ball, they know where they're going with it next. And using deception and using different things, whether it's a dribble move or whether it's a pass fake, shot fake, to create openings, for advantage, disadvantage situations is what both sports are all about. And so for me, it was an easy transition.
Yeah. And being at Auburn, I'm sure you could probably find this answer if I just search up on Google, but I doubt if anyone was watching this that they probably will not do that first. But everyone's story is kind of different. So just where was your journey to kind of how you got at Auburn?
Yeah, so after I graduated, I started off as a high school coach at South Oldham and just outside of Louisville, Kentucky. Did that for 5 years, had unbelievable mentors. The first coach I worked for was a guy named Coach Steve Simpson, who's still at South Oldham, and he's an unbelievable coach. During my 5 years there, the school had never made it to the state tournament. And in Kentucky, there is no class structure with basketball. So, I mean, everybody plays everybody. And our school was a decent-sized school, kind of middle of the road, but it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. It wasn't like a, massive 7A school or anything like that. And we were blessed enough to have some really good players, and made it to the state tournament 2 out of the 5 years. And those are the first 2 times in school history. And so I love my experience here. I taught English also, which was, I do miss that every once in a while. I don't miss grading the 140 papers, but I do miss having the classroom and doing all that stuff. But from there, I went on to be a graduate assistant at Florida State, which Coach Hamilton, he got a lot of praise this year for the work that he's done, but he's been doing this for a long time. And I knew that going into it. And so I saw it as a huge blessing when he offered me to be, a graduate assistant on his staff. And those 2 years, we had a lot of success. My second year, we were the 3rd seed, I think, a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament, and got knocked out by Xavier and Chris Mack in the second round. But I had an unbelievable opportunity to work with that staff and to work with pros. I think the pros on that team, Dwayne Bacon, Jonathan Isaac, Terrence Mann, Trent Forrest, Malik Beasley. I mean, those Chris Kamaje. I mean, the list goes on. And so, I mean, that was a great start for me to kind of jump into this level. From there, I had a great opportunity to move on to work with Coach Wes Flanagan, who has been an unbelievable mentor for me. I'm still with him now here at Auburn. And so being his video coordinator for that next year was a great experience, a great learning experience. And he gave me a lot of responsibility within the team. And with a small staff that we had, I was young and I think I was 31, 32, but I was still only in my third year in college basketball. It was unbelievable just learning experience to be able to be there. And we had some great games. We had a really young team. Things didn't work out. And so he ended up coming here to Auburn. And shortly after, he asked me if I wanted to come with him, and it was a no-brainer. And Coach Bruce Pearl kind of welcomed me into his family, and it's been an unbelievable ride since. In my first year, we went to the Final Four, had an unbelievable run, and we've kind of taken it and ran with it since.
Yeah, and you've obviously worked out, I guess, a handful of different schools. You've kind of gone, I guess, not all around the Southeast, but you've traveled a good amount. And the big thing with coaching, or you want to work in basketball or sports, so I'll tell my parents, I'm like, whatever, however many years ago, like, oh, I think I may want to be a sports broadcaster. And they're like, well, we're going to be traveling all over the place. Like, it's going to be like a lot of like dirty work. I don't think anyone want to marry a sports broadcaster. You're just traveling all over the place. It's going to be very tough to settle down. But you do have a wife and kids, it looks like. So kind of talk about that and, how you're able to make that work and that happens. That's obviously like a big concern of mine if I do end up going on this basketball journey is that.
The first thing I tell people is if you are married and if you are or have a significant other, they have to be on board because it's a lot of time. Essentially, you have a second family. Everybody in this community, and we do everything together. And so, when we go to football games, it's not just me and my wife and my two kids. It's my wife, my two kids, and everybody on the basketball team, and all the staff. And if we're hosting recruits that weekend, and so it's, they have to be full on board. And I got lucky enough. My wife had just finished physical therapy school. And when she graduated, Coach Hamilton asked me, he said, you ready to come down to Auburn? I said, man, I got to come down to Florida State. And I said, man, I got to find my wife a job down there, blah, blah, blah. And he said, man, don't worry about that. We got you covered. And I said, okay. And so sure enough, within 2 weeks, she had a job right there in Tallahassee and was ready to go. And, we had our little firstborn baby girl down there. And it's, they're truly blessings, but I'd be lying to you if I told you it was tough when I'm out on the road. Because you miss them all the time. I've got a 11-month-old son now, that demands a lot of attention, to say the least. But my wife is second to none when it comes to support and just understanding, that this comes with the job and this comes with, the territory, and, she's taken it and run with it and been nothing but supportive.
Yeah, I guess you could say what I've learned, like when I ask kind of coaches this question, is just don't marry like a loser. Like you got to marry somebody that, like you said, she just finished.
That's just life in general, right? Like don't marry a loser.
I guess, yeah. Because like you said, she just finished like physical therapy school. Like obviously, she was working hard for someone. Like you got to kind of find someone that understands like the grind and everything like that.
Hey, listen, she was my sugar mama for a little bit now. I mean, we didn't get paid much at Florida State as a GA. So I taught classes there at Florida State just to make some extra mad money. But man, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you she was my sugar mama there for about 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, probably very lucky for that. But I just want to talk about just this actually maybe like just your overall career, like being involved in basketball, being a coach or video coordinator, or whatever it was. Do you have like just a favorite moment that just stands out among the rest? Or
oof. Man, it's crazy how many calls I got right after the Final Four. Like when we went to the Final Four, just beat Kentucky in overtime. It's incredible how many calls within the industry that I got just saying, man, I've been in this thing for 40 years or 20 years or 10, and I've never been to the Final Four. And in my, really my fourth year in college basketball, I got really lucky, man, and got put with a good team and unbelievable people and great coaches, and we took that opportunity and ran with it, and the rest was history. So it's hard for me to go anywhere past that career wise. With everything that went on that season, I think we had just got blown out by Kentucky, like blown out, like by 30. And listen, I went to Louisville, so that game matters. Like that game to me is a big deal. We then won the next 12 straight and didn't lose in March. And ultimately, the last game that we won was against Kentucky. It's funny, one of my really good friends I'm closest with probably on staff is Marquise Daniels, who played 10 years in NBA, played here at Auburn. And I sit next to him on the bench every day. And he was like, man, you were crazy during that game. Like you were losing your mind. I said, man, listen, I was an Army brat growing up, but I claimed Kentucky as my home. And I went to Louisville, man. Like that rivalry is no joke. And so they had already beat us twice that year. And Tyler Hero and Keldon Johnson had kind of had our number a little bit. PJ Washington too. And we didn't have Chuma going into that last game. He had just, hurt his knee the game before against North Carolina. So needless to say, that one was pretty nice.
Yeah. And kind of talk about like this season a little bit, because I know it's probably very, very different. Just what was, this year like? Because I'm sure this one, out of your whole career, like you're probably always going to remember this season for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because we had the youngest team in college basketball. And so to our players, like this was just kind of how college basketball was. Like they didn't know anything different. Now, all of us as a staff knew that things were a little different and things were weird with COVID and the protocols and everything that went into it. But at the end of the day, we didn't have any hiccups or issues as the season went on. I think we were at the time where our only game that got canceled was because of snow in Mississippi, which is crazy. Had you told me at the beginning of the season, hey, you guys won't have any COVID interruptions with your team or with the other teams that you're going to play, but you're going to miss a game because of snow in Mississippi, I would have told you were full of, what. But that was the only hiccup that we really had, and so we only had to make up really one game, and that was right at the end of the season, which allowed us to do that. And we did the postseason ban this year, so that ultimately ended up being our last game. And that was probably the weirdest part was, going into after the regular season was over, just having that as like our final, all right, good season, guys, because, usually you're finishing in a tournament, and whether it's the SEC tournament or something else. And, that was the weirdest part, honestly.
Yeah. And I honestly, I completely forgot about the whole postseason ban kind of thing, but I don't know if you could like explain, like, I don't know. I'm kind of confused, like, what happened, like how kind of like what that means, like like I know when we see banned from the postseason, but you kind of touch on like kind of why that happened.
Yeah, so a couple things I guess happened before I got here, and there was an NCAA investigation, an FBI investigation, and so from there, that in order to kind of push that past us, we decided this year to go ahead and just do. Before the NCAA could go and give us something, which, they were going to, we decided to do that instead.
Yeah.
To go ahead and get in front of it, kind of like, Louisville did it a couple years ago, and just to get in front of it.
Yeah, I think, I don't know who I was talking to, but I think I kind of thought of it where it's like when a teacher says, like, if you confess now, you won't get in like as much trouble, or like kind of more like, and instead of, because then it's like, oh, if no one says you stole the pencil sharpener, like I'm gonna punish all you guys, like even worse. Like I don't know. That's kind of how I guess it was explained to me.
Yeah, I mean to a point, and again, it all happened before I got here, so I don't really know exact details, and I probably wouldn't be able to talk about it anyway. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah. So, but then next year you guys are going to be able to play in the postseason, right?
That's the plan. Yep.
Yeah. Of course, you got to play well. I'm assuming with the guy he's got coming in, it should be good. But was it at all like difficult to get some guys to maybe buy in at all this year? I guess maybe because like Corona was more like just be great for playing basketball, which could have been easy enough. But when there's no postseason, like how are you guys able to just keep everybody locked in and even just keep everybody enrolled at Auburn, where you're really just playing regular season games and that's it?
That was a huge concern for our staff. And it was having the youngest team in college basketball. It would be hard to not view that and say, okay, what are these guys playing for? And so we brought it to the open and we addressed it often. And at the end of the day, it was the pride that they had, and it was representing not only the name on the front of their jersey, but the one on the back. And so none of them, all of them have goals, and a lot of them end with NBA. And so a lot of teams in the NBA aren't playing for anything right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy to think about that. And so how are they being viewed by the other teams? How are they being viewed individually by other organizations? And at the end of the day, it's not your first contract in the NBA. It's your second contract that's going to matter. And so that's the one that's life-changing. A lot of people can get that first contract, but it's sustaining it and keeping in the league is the hardest part. Well, it's the same with college for us. And so what we talked to them about was, look, you have a lot to play for. We could still win championships. We could still win a regular season championship. That's going to go in the banners. We could still win this tournament down in Fort Myers. That will go in the banners. And so our whole thing, Coach Pearl is huge on making history. All throughout our locker room, it's all about make history, make your own history. And I think Sharif, when he came back, it was a spark in the kind of the middle of SEC play. And I think at that time we were 0-3 in SEC play. And he came in and kind of sparked everything and allowed us to play guys in their natural positions, which allowed them to really excel. And I think that's why you see a lot of those guys on draft boards now.
Yeah. And you mentioned kind of Coach Pearl, Coach Pearl, right? I just want to make sure I'm not like, all right, I don't know why. I thought it was maybe like Coach, like reversing the starting letters for both things. I don't know why it just happened, but you mentioned how kind of his thing is like make history. You're not, I guess an official coach, head coach, assistant coach, whatever yet. But I'm sure, like, I don't really care about, I guess, his stuff. Like, I want to know more. What's your coaching style?
Man, I'm pretty fun loving. I'm pretty easygoing. I think my former players would tell you I'm as energetic as they are in the middle of games. So that's always been really good for me with Coach Pearl. Coach Pearl is everywhere on the sidelines. Like in the middle of the game, I mean, he sweats harder than the players do, and so that always attracted me to his style of play and his style of coaching. And, it's been a true blessing the past 3 years to be able to learn from him and learn from the guys on his staff. And, but at the end of the day, like that's, my role right now is to kind of sit in the middle of the bench to talk to a lot of the guys as they come out, whether they're frustrated or whether they're trying to figure out what's going on in the game, or if they see something that maybe we haven't seen, or just to kind of calm down and relax a little bit. And so,
yeah.
That's kind of my role right now is I'll throw a couple X's and O things to a couple of the assistants or whoever has the scout that day. If I see something that is going on, but I'm a defensive minded coach. I love to get after it. I love to press. When I was a high school coach, man, we pressed all game and we shot a lot of threes. Here at Auburn, we press a lot and shoot a lot of threes. And so, to me, this was kind of the perfect marriage for how I like to play, how I like to coach, and the high energy level that hopefully our players show.
Yeah, I thought I was a little more of like a conservative coach, but then I actually started watching like Auburn highlights. I guess for the 2019 season, like every game. Also because we were pretty close. Like I was like, I just love watching this team. Like a lot of threes. Like, and again, I think I'm conservative. Like I don't like threes, but like watching Steph Curry play, you can't like not be amazed by that. But I would consider myself maybe more of like a conservative, but also like high energy, more of like a hustle coach. Because I can't play basketball too well, so all about
Marquise Daniels, this legend that just walked in the office. He's our hustle coach. He's got to make sure everybody's sprinting down the court.
I
Uh,
don't want that job.
yes, you do.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy for sure. But you mentioned like the sideline talking kind of thing. So this year my role, I used to like being a manager. I used to like take stats and everything. But this year, because we actually have someone that does that, like just only takes stats. So he's not any practice. He just goes to the games and does the stats. So this year I was actually like basically the coach. Like he wasn't like Isaac, like you gotta do this. Like he just let me sit on the bench and just cheer. Like I was like the cheerleader.
Hey, listen, the hype man. Everybody needs a hype man.
Yeah, exactly. But also, like I want to be a little more like basketball-y too. Like of course, I enjoy kind of hyping the guys up and everything, but kind of give us like your advice to kind of your sideline. Like I think there's just so much going on in a game. Like it's hard to kind of take it all in. Like, do you kind of focus on one area? Are you able to see everything going on at once, or kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, my role during games is I do the defensive charting, and so depending on each possession, what happened during that possession, did they score? Did we get a stop? What defense were we in? Were there any blow-bys? Things like that. And so my critical eye immediately has to go to those things. And like I said, I'm a defensive-minded guy, so I kind of take the holistic defensive approach in terms of trying to watch all five guys. We have one coach that is just in charge of on the ball, and so I try to kind of look at all the other stuff. Are they in the right spots during a ball screen coverage? Are they in the right spots in terms of shell drill if everybody is just around the perimeter? Are we relaxing off the ball? Are we in a stance? And so those are kind of the things that my eye immediately goes to. Offensively, I'm just trying to make sure they execute. And again, that's not really my role right now, but if I do notice that somebody isn't executing a certain thing and they come out of the game and they're curious why they just came out, I'll kind of let them know, hey, listen, we got to execute this better. You would have had a wide open shot had you set a good screen right here. You would have, had you set this good screen or had you actually used this rub cut or came off at full speed, it could have opened up somebody else, which then makes you open for the and one more. And so, especially with the young guys, getting them to understand, look, you've been the best player on your team your whole life. That has now changed. It's time to start playing as a team now. And for the most part, we don't have those issues just because the guys that we bring in are, team-oriented guys anyway. But obviously, every great player still wants to continue to be great, And so this, sometimes, especially with young teams, you kind of have to sit them down and let them see and understand that you doing what we're asking you to do here has a purpose, whether it's to get you a shot or get somebody else a shot or to set up something that we're going to run here in a little bit. And so getting them to understand that and understand the team concept is huge. And usually after, just a couple games, our guys are really good at grasping that and understanding it.
Yeah. Something I just came up with, like when you kind of talking about offense, like I realized, or even I guess just basketball, college basketball in general, like I remember our coach when I was with the JV team, the head varsity coach like showed up to practice. He's like, here, like I want you guys, like I'm gonna introduce you guys a new play. So this is this play, like, and I was like, I did not know like basketball plays could even be this long. Like our plays were so simple before I saw that. So I'm sure the jump from high school basketball to college basketball is probably pretty crazy in terms of like the plays and defensive schemes and everything. And since you weren't kind of, I guess you could say, like the traditional coach, like you weren't a manager, you didn't play college basketball or anything. You did say you love basketball, but even if I was a basketball junkie watching the NBA every day, like that's not going to prepare. I wouldn't think that would prepare me for a college coaching job. So like, how are you able to kind of learn and adapt to all that stuff? Because going from high school to a college level is probably a really big adjustment.
Absolutely. And I was lucky enough. I played 4 years of high school basketball and had 3 different coaches during that time in my 4 years, which is insane. But it really helped me. I mean, my freshman year, the head coach was a legend. Billy Reynolds in Kentucky had coached for a very long time, like 30, 40 years. And he told us as freshmen at the beginning of the year that this was going to be his last year and he was retiring after that. And we had a really good team, had a lot of success, and didn't end probably the way we wanted it to, making it to the state tournament. But again, like I said, in Kentucky, there's no class structure. So, I mean, I think we ended up losing to the eventual state champion in Elizabethtown High School that would have, future pros on that team. And so my mind just went blank. But Antoine Barber was on that team, but he played at Kentucky. And so, after that year, my sophomore and junior year, we had an actual college coach that got the job, Mark White. And I think he had, without going into too much detail, I think he got into a little bit of trouble, and so had a 2-year ban and decided to come down and coach college. We had a really good team my sophomore year. And so he came in thinking, that he would be able to sort of take us to the next level. And we had a lot of success my sophomore year, and ended up losing in the regional finals to a team that made it to the state finals. And so, my junior year we didn't have as good of a team, but anyway, he went back to the college ranks and joined Rick Stansberry at Mississippi State staff. And so at that point, our JV coach got bumped up and took the head job, and he was excellent. He allowed us to play. He had obviously been a JV coach with us all 4 years, and so he took us and knew us really well and allowed us to be ourselves. And so, that experience of having those 3 coaches, all 3 of them were very different, but all had unbelievable experiences. But especially my sophomore, junior year, when I was really starting to understand different concepts and, understanding varsity basketball, I think that kind of sparked my interest. And ironically, when I was at Florida State, he was the head coach at TCC, at Tallahassee Community College. And they randomly just came to watch our practice one day, and he stepped in, and I was like, "Coach, what's up, man?" And it was great to just kind of reunite with him. But, the coaching world is a small world. And like I said earlier, I started coaching AAU in Louisville and loved it. And so from there, one of my players on that team played at South Oldham, which I had just got a teaching job there. And so he hooked me up with that head coach, Steve Simpson, and the rest was history.
Yeah. And when I say the word like video coordinator to maybe the average sports fan, like I mean, saying video coordinator sounds like very nerdy, like that's what I would think,
I might be a little nerdy. It's all right.
Yeah. But obviously, someone like that kind of really knows what it is. Like I honestly learned like this year what a video coordinator really is, but now like it sounds like a pretty cool job. Like I would love to just do what you do, and obviously the relationships you have is unbelievable. And I mean, one of those players, like I'm looking, who follows your Instagram. Well, like I see Sharif Cooper follows your Instagram, so no one's gonna. These people are gonna hear.
Man, dang. I mean, anytime I post his name, I get like 20 extra followers. So.
Like people are gonna be like, oh, video coordinator hangs out with like Sharif Cooper. Like how? Why is he even talking to him? Like, talk about because you aren't like the head coach or anything like that, but kind of explain how you've been able to build these relationships with these high level guys and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, well, for one, depending on where you are, video coordinator can mean a variety of things. I've been really lucky. When I first got hired with Coach Flanagan at Little Rock as his video coordinator, he told me, he was like, look, I want you to be in charge of breaking down all of the film, breaking down all the practices and everything else. But at the end of the day, you're one of my coaches. And so if you see something, although you can't say something in practice, I want you to come and tell one of the assistants or tell me so I can tell the guys. And I'll say Coach Pearl has been that times 10. I mean, he's unbelievable in terms of he never wavers no matter who's giving the advice or the opinion. When we sit in our conference room as a staff, I mean, he values, our head assistant's position on things just as much as he does our assistant director of ops. And the age gap in those is huge, but it's all about the value that you bring and the significance of what you're saying. And he's going to listen to every single thing that you say. Now, he might not always agree with it, but he's going to listen. And every single person on our staff has a voice, which for somebody in my position is unbelievable. Most of the time when you hear video coordinator, though, immediately people think of like, like the intro video, right? And so anytime that our Instagram or our Twitter or anything posts, like, my birthday, for example, they'll be like, "Oh, happy birthday, video coordinator Ian Borders." All the comments are like, "Oh my God, like the video you posted earlier was unbelievable." But I always have to redirect that, like, yo, I do none of that. I wouldn't even know the first part to start with any of that. Like our War Eagle Productions people do all of that stuff. And so, our role here is more of breaking down film, breaking down opponents, watching some of these guys that we're looking at recruit wise. And at the end of the day, you're going to build the relationships with the guys that you're around, and they're going to respect the people that are around and sitting in their corner. And I always have a great opportunity to introduce and kind of get to know them on their official visits, and even unofficial. But anytime they come to campus, it's kind of my time to shine, I guess you'd say. And so by the time they get to campus, it's I hopefully have already built that relationship with them, and from there I just kind of let my personality and my instincts take over. I don't think about it too much. My wife always tells me it just comes natural to me. And part of that is because I was an Army brat growing up. I've had to move around a lot, had to make new friends every single place I moved. So, that to me is just second nature. And so I just be myself. And that would be the advice I'd give to anybody. It's just, just like you with everybody can see through fakeness, and so if you're not going to be yourself, they're going to notice that and they're going to see that. And at the end of the day, if you genuinely care about them, which, clearly we do, they'll show you that same respect back.
Yeah. And one of the, I guess the one of the bigger talks of the town now with college basketball is the transfer portal. So I don't really want to know like your opinion on it, but I saw a tweet where it said, like coaches, like the high school kids are like the bottom of the totem pole in terms of recruiting. So like, could you kind of like explain that a little bit? So like, are these, 5 stars and like all these like top ranked guys are getting offers? Like, is that a little, I guess risky for them now? Like, is there a chance that they might all get all these like top players, or what does that kind of mean?
It definitely changed the game in terms of, being immediately eligible. I mean, if you were going to transfer before, you really had to sit down and think about it, because you weren't going to lose a year of eligibility, but you were going to lose a year of being on the court with your teammates and playing. You could still practice and do all that, but I mean, people want to play. And at the end of the day, if that year is taken from you, then it makes you think a little bit harder about transferring. And so right now, since the NCAA passed that rule, there's mixed emotions about it, but essentially it really has become like NBA free agency, because a kid can transfer at any time. For a one-time transfer to be immediately eligible, there's a lot of people that think that there's better, greener pastures on the other side. Sometimes that is true, but sometimes it's not. And so, at the end of the day, the kids, they need to do the best they can to get the best advice that they can. In terms of the recruiting, though, I'll put it to you like this, because different people have different opinions about it. And I don't necessarily, want to waver anybody's opinion one way or the other with my personal opinion about it. But are you like a kid that has proven at a mid-major, low major, or even high major that they can be extremely productive? Or are you going to take a gamble on a kid that's played against lesser talent at the high school level, has dominated that, but you don't truly know, right? And so, I think with a lot of the 5-star kids won't have any issues. Yeah. People will still recruit them, even the 4-star kids. People will still recruit them, but it's maybe the 3 stars and the guys that kind of go, a little bit more under the radar that may have to go to a smaller major school, like a mid-major or low major, and prove it first, and then the high major schools will come calling.
Yeah, so it's kind of more like the advice to those. Is it also kind of thing where maybe as soon as you get that offer, like you really gotta kind of take, like you gotta think really fast and take it if you are one of those kind of 3-star or like kids that are, or one of those unranked kids but are still getting those high major offers. Like if you want to go there, like you better know it fast, because if not, then that's going to go away. Is that kind of like, I guess, like advice to them if they really want to go to those schools?
Yes and no. I mean, at the end of the day, I think it depends on what they want. I mean, if it's a school that they've had on their mind for a long time, uh, listen, like I'll give you my example. All right. So when I was a high school player, had Florida State came calling, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. And I would have committed to them on the spot, not even thinking twice, because my whole family went there. Right. And so with those, like if I were a 2-star or 3-star kid and they came calling, I'd jump on it and I'd take it. Because I already knew that that's where I would want to be. But at the end of the day, if you have options and you know that you're not fully decided yet, then I think, taking your time and trying to feel out the process and getting as much, opinion about different things as you can, and taking your official visits and seeing the campus and seeing what the staff's all about and getting face to face with them. I think there's a lot that goes into a decision in terms of, ultimately picking where you want to spend the next 4 years of your life.
Yeah. And for my final couple of questions, I guess I want you to give, I guess, some of your best pieces of advice. So for my first question, or not, for, like my first out of my two final questions, I want to know, for a high school player, like you said, how you kind of get like a decent amount of emails. I'm sure there's a lot of players where they think they're really like nowhere there. Like those guys are, put it on Twitter that no one knows who they are. Like, you're gonna see soon, whatever. And they're very hardworking guys, but they just kind of don't realize all the better players that are out there. Maybe like kind of those people. What's your advice to players that want to play at Auburn and want to play at that high major level to get recruited?
Yeah, I mean, keep working. I mean, that the work pays off, period. And all of our guys that are here, like Auburn's not a big party school. Auburn's not. If you're trying to like go out to clubs and parties and things like that, like Auburn's not it. And so the kids that we get are gym rats. Like they live in the gym. The dorm is right across from the gym. And so literally they scan their eyes, they come in, like the door unlocks and they have access to the gym 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so that's kind of the type of kids that we get. And those are the type of kids that we love and we recruit, because we know that work's going to pay off. And so we'll take a gamble on a kid that's maybe a 3-star kid that we really like in terms of the way that we think that he can develop. And if we know for a fact that he's going to put in that work based on the research that we've done on the kid, then we'll take a chance and we'll go for it, And so, listen, at the end of the day, everybody's got their dreams. I had dreams of being a college basketball player. I wasn't good enough, so I went, to try to play soccer. Found out I probably wasn't good enough for that either. But at the end of the day, those were dreams that I had, and those were dreams that I tried to play out. And later on, my dreams turned to being a coach and trying to be the best coach I could be. And I started that off at the high school level, and I knew that a dream of mine would be to be a Division I coach. And we're in progress of trying to make that happen.
Yeah. And then my advice, I guess, more for myself, because I'm not the best athlete. I don't play high school basketball, or I'm the manager, but I don't play high school basketball. So for every coach I talk to, whether they're kind of a guy like me, and an athletic guy like me, or someone that's played high school basketball or played a college sport, like what would be your advice to someone like me, where I'm not really getting that first hands-on experience? Like what would be your advice so I could try to build my IQ and learn how to be a coach and everything, and hopefully get to a place kind of like where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're taking the first great steps in that. I mean, I was shocked when you reached back out to me and said, "Oh, well, I'm the high school guy," and I said, "Really?" I mean, the things that you're doing right now are a step above anybody your age in terms of where you're at, and so I applaud you for that. The other piece of that is just keep getting as much knowledge as you possibly can. I'm trying to think, we have 3 guys on our staff that never played high level basketball. Like, and I'm talking like high school, anything like that. And so, our head coach, Coach Pearl, was a manager at Boston College. And so that's he's a student assistant and kind of made his way from there. Now, he was a heck of an athlete. but ended up having knee issues. And this was kind of, before ACL surgery was just something that you did on a normal basis. But ultimately that was his path. Was he ended up following that head coach to Stanford. And even there, he was a student coach or like a volunteer coach at Stanford, and worked his way up. Ended up being a full-time assistant coach at Stanford. His coach then went to Iowa, and he followed him to Iowa. And so, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. It's all about understanding the game, which you're clearly trying to do now in your role as a manager. And, the more that you can get on to, doing that at the college level, you're going to build those relationships with the staff that you ultimately end up going to college with. And from there, man, it's all up to you. It's how much you can soak in, how much you can pick people's brains, and especially with the system. Like, I'll give you one example. Probably and you never think this, but the person that is probably closest to Coach Pearl in terms of our X's and O's is our assistant director of basketball operations. And he's an unbelievable X's and O's guy. And he's 25 years old, I think. His name's Mike Burgomaster. And he has Coach Pearl's ear as best as anybody on our staff because of his respect for the game, because of his knowledge about the game, because of they get together and they're so offensive minded. They just start going with each other. And before they know it, we have 4 or 5 new plays where things that'll work against certain teams. And that was kind of his niche. And that's how he was able to maneuver his way, in this profession and kind of working up to that. And he started here as a GA, and ironically, he was a manager at Miami. Well, I got this job partly because Wes Flanagan took the job and wanted me to come with him. But before that happened, Coach Pearl asked Mike Burgomaster about me from his time at Miami and my time at Florida State. And so that relationship from there took off. And, at the end of the day, it's about relationships, but obviously, your knowledge of the game and sort of picking up different little subtle things is critical.
Yeah. And I guess I'm going to have 2 more questions, I guess, because I thought of a little negative-ish one, so I don't want to end on a negative note, but yeah. I learned like one of the coaches or assistant coaches in my high school actually was a coach at college. And I was like, so, you went from Division I, I think it was in the West Coast Conference. What was it? I think it was pretty sure it was San Francisco. So you went from Division I assistant coach to now you're here. Like, I don't live in the middle of nowhere, but this is not a worldwide known city that I live in. So I asked him, kind of like how this all happens. Like, well, something that kind of happens to a lot of college coaches. They all like the staffs always get fired and everything. So kind of how do you like handle that? Because I'm sure that's something that could happen. I mean, hopefully, like I love Coach Pearl, so hopefully not. But like that's something I'm assuming that happens frequently. So how does that kind of all work with people like you, and what's like your mentality, and how do you kind of handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it happened to me. It happened to me at Little Rock, and so my wife and daughter and I left Florida State to go to Little Rock, and again we had an extremely young team. We had a future pro that was sitting on our bench as a transfer. Ironically, he would have been able to play right away now, but he was our best player, and our second best player about 3 or 4 days before the season started got a knee injury, and so we ended up having to start in my first year at Little Rock. I think 3 freshmen, a junior, and a walk-on, and we're not talking about like Auburn freshmen.
Yeah.
Kentucky freshmen. We're talking about freshmen that went to Little Rock. And so they were very talented. Probably our best one is actually at Flagler now. That is, I think he was D2 first team All-American. He's a good player, Jay Zaglotti. But, from there, for a variety of reasons, that were probably, for lack of a better word, a little unfair. We got let go. And so, I had been there 8 months. And at the end of the day, I mean, you trust the work and the relationships that you put into it. The new coach, Coach Darrell Walker, kept me on staff as the video coordinator. And, at the end of the day, Coach Flanagan called me from Auburn and and asked me if I wanted to join him when he got the job, and I said, it's a no-brainer. Yeah, I'm in. And so, the thing that I tell people all the time is, I've really never interviewed for one job. And so it's all about relationships, and it's all about the work that you put in. So do the best job that you possibly can with the staff that you're on. So many people are looking for the next thing. What's next? What's next? What's next? And my advice to them is do the best job you possibly can for the staff that you're working for currently. Because, there's a book that I have up there that's called Make the Big Time Where You Are. And I've tried to live by that in the sense that instead of looking for my next job, like I know God's got me, it's going to happen one way or another. But I don't need to put a timetable on it. I'm just going to do the best I possibly can for the staff that I'm working with, and let that success and let those relationships sort of brew. And if something comes open, great. If not, I'm just going to keep my head down and keep grinding. So that's kind of been my mentality on the whole thing. And if heaven forbid something happened, here at Auburn where we got let go, I have no doubt that I trust the process, and I'd be just fine.
And when you were saying the whole like what's next kind of thing, where it's not kind of like what you think about, I guess my final question, ironically, is I want to know. I'm assuming Auburn video coordinator is not going to be your final job, or this was your. I mean, I guess it's a dream. It's a dream job in the process, but obviously that's no one's final destination. Like, what's like? I guess what's like still kind of chasing something. And I mean, if you can share like what's kind of that final goal, or like what are you really working towards?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's goal for the most part at this level is to ultimately be a head coach, and I think that's still my goal. Somebody asked me the other day, which I thought was fascinating. They said, "Would you be cool with being an assistant forever?" And I said, "Absolutely." If I found a head coach that I just truly loved and loved working for, and everything fit well with my family and the location and all that, like I could sit and be an assistant coach forever, and I'd be completely cool with that too. Like again, I think everybody desires to kind of have their own program and kind of have their own footprint on things, but I'd be very content just working with the guys and taking that role as an assistant also. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody's goal is to try to be a head coach.
Yeah. Well, Coach, really appreciate letting me interview you, taking the time.
Yeah.
It's always a blessing kind of getting to hear all this knowledge. But I guess while we do like I kind of have like my like a sign off routine. But do you prefer being called like Coach I, Coach B, Coach Ian, Coach Borders? Like, what's your like preference with that?
Well, I tell people all the time, you can call me whatever you want. Like if you want to call me shithead to my face, and that's but for the most part, people call me Coach Ian.
All right, yeah. I was pretty curious about that, but yeah. So make sure you guys give us a follow on Instagram at IanBorders_AU, and I'm at iHoopsFL. And anyways, for Auburn video coordinator, Coach Ian, or Ian Borders, full name. I'm Isaac Fleischer, and this has been another iHoopsFL interview. Peace out, guys.